Okay, so wanted to introduce the speakers up here today. So I'll start. My name is Jordan Stein. I'm a product manager here at DBT Labs, focused on the semantic layer. Prior to DBT, I was working at a small startup called Transform that was building a semantic layer, which was eventually acquired by DBT. And then I've also held roles as a data scientist at DoorDash and various other tech companies. So I've been around the data space and thinking about metrics and semantics for a long time now. I'll hand things off to Hans to introduce himself.
My name is Hans Nelsen. I head up data at Brightside Health. I've been working in healthcare for the last 10, 11 years. I was at GoodRx before this. I like solving sort of big problems in the space, or systemic problems, I guess. And so at GoodRx, it was drug pricing, and here it's access and affordability to mental health treatment. And I've worked in a bunch of other domains. I'm just a data nerd, so I've done a lot: logistics, publishing, catastrophic risk insurance, whatever. So I just love data. So, and then Fidel is on my team, great member.
Hey everyone. I'm Fidel. I'm also a data nerd. I was the third data person at Brightside, and now it is a team of 15 plus. And in the last year, I've have had a chance to work on the semantic layer and deploying it and putting it in developing it in a way so that we can use it in our product.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to give a brief overview of what the semantic layer does, just so we're all on the same page. And then I think Hans and Fidel are really the stars of the show here. So they're going to chat about the data challenges that they faced, why they chose the DBT semantic layer to help solve some of those challenges, what are the solutions they implemented, and then some of the results that they've seen from that. So that's going to be the majority of the content here today. So I will just give a quick review of what the semantic layer does, and then I'll get out of the way and hand things over to the Brightside folks. So at a just very high level, what we see today is metrics that are defined separately in many different tools. So your actual metric definition might live in your BI tool as a Tableau calculated field. It could be in a notebook or defined in a catalog that no one actually really uses. So what happens in this situation is you'll get questions from the business like, what is revenue in June? And that metric definition is defined differently in all of these different places, depending on the consumption tool. And so this leads to inconsistent answers, and people don't really understand what the true metric definition is. And so with the semantic layer, everyone gets the same answer every time. So the way we enable this is pushing that metric definition upstream into your DBT project, and then serving out that metric definition through the semantic layer APIs. So you can see here on the slide an example of one of those API calls. This is in our JDBC interface. So someone is asking for the revenue metric, grouping by metric time month, and filtering on metric time month is equal to June. That'll give us the correct answer for revenue in June, and then we can federate that out to these different consumption points, be it your BI tool, your data science platform, data application, which is what we're going to be talking a lot about today, catalog product, wherever you want to serve that metric definition. So that's the high level, what are some of the problems we're solving with the semantic layer. And then I wanted to show what the architecture of a data team that has implemented the semantic layer looks like. So this is our vision. You are landing raw data into your cloud data platform and then transforming that data with DBT. I think a lot of folks are very familiar with this workflow. And then on top of those transformed data sets, you are creating your semantic definitions. These are your semantic models and metrics, which are new objects in the DBT DAG. And then you're querying those through the semantic layer APIs. And we expose different types of APIs. We have a JDBC, ODBC, a REST, a GraphQL API. And you can query those metric definitions in any of these downstream consumption points. We'll translate that request into SQL, execute it against your data platform, and return that consistent metric result to your end users. So just a brief overview of what the semantic layer is and what the architecture looks like if you've implemented a semantic layer at your company. Okay, I'm going to hand things over now to the Brightside team to talk a little bit more about their journey with the semantic layer and how they're using it to solve some of their data challenges.
Cool. Yep. So I thought it might be helpful just to explain who we are. It's a very confusing space. There's a lot of players in it, and mental health needs are ubiquitous in America. A staggering number of people need our services, and so it feels good to be working on this problem. And so what is the problem? There is a misperception that there's not enough healthcare providers, and we have found that that's not true. What is true is there's not enough healthcare providers in network, and so people are forced to go to out-of-pocket experience or pay directly for their therapist or their psychiatrist out of pocket because it would take too long to get services in network. And so our goal is to provide affordable, high-quality healthcare, mental health care in network in a 72-hour window for people so that they can get the care they need. And that's a very hard problem. And so we use a lot of data along the way to help us both build trust with the payers. They tend to have a disproportionate say in the rates that these small businesses, the therapists and psychiatrists can garner, and the amount of paperwork they have to fill out. And so we take on all of that for the therapists and the psychiatrists, and it creates a trust signal. The fact that we're 100% digital also really helps because we have data points everywhere, and so our mission of our team is to harness that data and make it accessible to data professionals so that we can make the best decisions at the right time to help people get the care they need. And so, and so super excited to talk about the semantic layer and how having a crawlable API or an API on top of our metrics really allows us to sort of invest once and use many times in a way that is consistent and reliable so that we don't have split brain problems, we don't have out of sync decision making, and we also can do things we never thought we could do. So it's exciting and reliable. So next slide, please. Sorry, I'm the only person in this room, so I'm not, sorry if I start sounding sleepy. I am excited about this topic. So the data challenges we're up against, the same ones everyone's up against. Like the metrics were sort of bleeding out into notebooks and bleeding out into spreadsheets. We did a pretty good job of building up a Tableau layer before I got here. And then it has drift in it, where the metrics, particularly your ratios and your things like that, where you're taking two metrics and combining them, tend to start to wind up in spreadsheets. And so those aren't accessible to anybody other than someone that passes that sheet around. So, and then obviously the lack of documentation, it's hard to document these things as they sort of get built on the fly, and there's a lot of tribal knowledge that's built. So that means a lot more meetings to just get started on something. Whereas, data nerds tend to be, just show me the docs and I'll get started. Nerds by definition don't really want to talk to a bunch of people. So the less meetings we can have, the better. And the faster we can spend, the less time we can spend in data discovery, the better, is my view. And then from an overall standpoint, the context switching, especially at the clinical level, and embedded analytics for us are very important because we want to, we could just build our metrics and put them in Tableau and then have the providers go out to Tableau and find the metrics they're interested in, or the operations people. And that's what we have been doing. But like when you're seeing 30 patients in a day, like that's context switching in and of itself, quite a load on someone. And so preventing them from having to jump from tool to tool to tool has a cumulative benefit that we find fascinating, and we see really good results when we invest in embedded analytics. So, but yeah, the problem statement is like brittle data quality because we have this disparate metrics, low velocity because discovery takes a long time, and business users without access to necessary KPI. Like it's just the TLDR is like it leads to a lot of bad or poor decisions, and so like yeah, next slide. And so the question, like to me, like I always think in terms of like control, like where do you put it? You know, and our initial pass at this was to put the control in the Tableau layer so that people could have like one centralized set of like things. But it really, the demand, that's not what people wanted. So we have a bunch of desire to have embedded analytics, and our data scientists were having to repeat a bunch of code all the time. And so like to calculate metrics to put into their feature sets for their models. And so that's what led us to the semantic layer, is like it seems like the right abstraction layer to sort of pull up some metric definitions from transform and push down some metric definitions from like spreadsheets and notebooks into a centralized place. And there's a lot of benefits that come from it. So it's pretty exciting. I'm talking too much, so you can go ahead. So let's see. I think is this you, Fidel?
Yeah, this is me.
All right, perfect.
Hey everyone. So I'm just going to be talking quickly about really the process that we took to develop this metric system while using the semantic layer, right? And we called it the metric factory. And essentially, we were trying to standardize like the steps that we took to request, plan, develop, and deliver the metrics to the user. And it's essentially what we're going to follow to bring a metric into production, right? And these are some of the things that we were trying to solve for. I wanted to highlight like the value-based metrics, like following a certain steps for a process to develop a metric really forces you to think whether the metric is valuable or not, and having a systematic way of going about it like really allowed us to be selective in our metrics in the semantic layer. Next screen, please. Yeah, so this is like the process that we follow, and it's just I'm not going to go through each and every one of the boxes, but essentially when we get a metric request, we try to follow a certain steps to bring it to the semantic layer. And most of us are using some sort of, ticketing system like Asana or Jira. And on the right-hand side, you could see like a checklist of like what I need to do before I can even show the metric to a user. And I would say like this piece allowed me to like stay organized in my metric development, because metrics in general, it's chaotic in nature, right? Like there's a lot of them, there's all kinds of calculations. It can determine like how a week will go based on who's using the metric. So the more order and structure and organized you go about developing metrics, the easier it's going to be. Next page, please. Next slide. The shared dimensions. So it's a little small. I'm sure it's a little. There's a zoomed in version in the next page, but I just want to highlight this real quick. So in the boxes are the list of our metrics. The colorful circles are the domain or objects of our business, Brightside specifically, and the gray circles are type 1 dimensions, and the black circles are type 2 slowly changing dimensions, right? And this the way when we did the planning step, where we did a top-down approach and we laid out, okay, what metrics exist, what are our domains, and what kind of dimensions do we need to make these metrics make sense. It was easier to develop the semantic layer. So I guess that would be one of my advices, is to design it like you were designing a warehouse, right? Like have some sort of diagram that'll give you guiding principles while you develop the semantic layer. Next slide, please. This is an example, right? So metrics, like by domain, they're good, but when you can relate them to other metrics in your business, it becomes more powerful, right? So for example, here, this is like our supply and demand is driven by these two domains, right? Like our utilization rate of our practitioners will determine how many people we interview, how many people we offer, positions to, and they all share. Like most companies, when you're querying your data in general, you're gonna slice and dice your data pretty much with the same dimensions, right? Like I'm sure you end up using the same common dimensions, and if you're able to connect your metrics to those dimensions, on a user side, on a user of semantic layer, it's a better experience, right? Because in the semantic world, in the DBT semantic layer, you declare dimensions once, right? And you don't want to have to like someone query different metrics and not be able to relate it to other domains. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are just some of the things that like a little screenshots of how I did like a type 1 dimension, and I call them dimension shops, like where you would have all your semantic models with your measures, and then you had different semantic models for your dimensions, and you have join keys to go into these dimensions. And then the second screenshot is how I solved for the type 2 solely changing dimensions. This chart here, the join chart, I thought was like the most helpful thing in the DBT documentation. It just, because when you're developing in semantic layer, you're foreseeing the joins in your head, right? You're not really looking at the outputs right away. So this chart was really helpful, I thought. And then last page. Yeah, so again, like just in our metric factory process, a summary, and if I can give any advice to how to go about developing these things is streamline the process of metric development. You want to try to take the same steps every time you're developing a metric. Do a top-down approach, right? See what exists in the business, what metrics are needed, as opposed to like developing and making the metrics make sense to the business. There's usually something that exists already. Focus on the dimensionality to unlock the full potential of the semantic layer. The relationship between domains really unlocks semantic layer. And the DBT Cloud semantic layer channel in the DBT Slack channel, they pretty much answer all my questions. Like so many people are dealing with the same day-to-day development problems. So I thought it was really valuable. And another thing that was really helpful to me was I always had a data team member and a non-data team member kind of testing whatever I'm developing, just to get feedback on whether it was valuable or not. But yeah, this is kind of how we went about our deployment.
Amazing. Cool. Thanks for that, Fidel. That was amazing. Fidel's played a great role in sort of working with this new approach for us. I'm being very open to start over. I think we took about 5 or 6 swings at how to do it. And like the top-down approach is very beneficial. Like the bottoms-up approach, like a lot of DBT stuff, you sort of move left to right constantly. And with the metric factory, it helps to go a little right to left and work backwards from where you want to wind up and work backwards from the shared space. So yeah, little advice, I guess. Yeah, so like embedded analytics, it's nothing like, it may not seem like much to most people that there's just this little extra column for new member capacity here. But like the person who's in charge of like managing this subnetwork and just in this case, it's in Florida for therapists, before they were bouncing between spreadsheets, Slack, Tableau, and so like this is just an example of like having the metric that is what they need to make their decision alongside the place where they actually can execute their decision is worth its weight in gold. And so the other nice benefit of this is it gives data scientists a place to publish their output, especially when you have your classifications, and your diagnostic, and I guess the predictive and prescriptive stuff, mostly predictive. Those three areas can kind of like, getting data science into products is not always the easiest thing to do in the world. And like now we have a pretty like reliable way to just get them into our semantic layer, and we're able to expose them via an API. But yeah, this is just an example. Embedded analytics. The other major benefit for us is data scientists, or data scientists, spend a lot of time having to recreate metrics, whether they like it or not. And that discovery time of tracking down where it's defined, the understanding the nuances of like how the metric is defined, like in our case, conversion really does matter, like what the source is, and like whether you're a cash pay or an insurance pay, and like how you were referred to us, like all that goes into that metric. And there's just nuances that like time to first iteration on model discovery, like model discovery, their job's hard enough, I guess, is the way I look at it. And like we burden them with all this tedious data janitor stuff that really they don't need to do. And so like we're seeing very good benefit. They just want to, for the most part, just have a notebook. And now we've taken like a huge discovery process off of their shoulders, and they just write a GraphQL query and populate a data frame and get started. So it's quite good. So the other side of things is we talk about crawlable metrics. I think like in computer science, the saying is like everything can be solved with another layer of indirection, and like putting an API on top of your metrics kind of opens things up quite a bit. So we've been working with a company called Push AI that kind of takes our metric like API, crawls it, and then we build a business like graph in their tool. And this allows us to sort of take advantage of those relationships that Fidel was talking about, especially across dimensional space. We can kind of see things in a way that we weren't able to before, or we could, but it was a little tedious. And like the main thing I'm interested in is the anomaly detection. Like when you manage mental health care in America, you have 50 states plus DC, which means 50 regulatory potential differences, or 51. And then every type of service you offer. So we have therapy, psychiatry, and now we offer teen care and crisis care and intensive outpatient. So multiply by all those programs, we're actually running somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2,500 separate businesses, really. And so like the ability to have that shared dimensional space across all of these things and see the metrics and what's driving anomalies in the system, and allows us to get ahead of them before they become burdensome on the patient, is what our goal is. So yeah, we're super excited about Push AI. It's been fun. Go ahead, next slide, sorry. And yeah, I don't like reading slides to people, but like it's like I think I just said most of this stuff, but it really is about efficiency in the data scientists getting started, about the principle of dry, don't repeat yourself, just having one place where something's defined, having API access to a metric is amazing. It gives us all sorts of opportunities to work with, and we're super excited about Tableau Cloud is coming out with working with Semantic Layer, I believe, next month. If people keep telling me it's coming soon. But once that hits, like everything's going to be magical for us, because then we can really focus on like delivering metrics instead of delivering dashboards. like it just becomes a new mindset because like you put the work that Fidel's talking about what is the metrics value, and like what is the dimensional space you want to tie into, and then it just sort of takes off. It's quite beautiful. So. I think that's all we have. We just wanted to share with you our experience so far, and why we did it and who we are. So there you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hans and Fidel. I'm going to give you a virtual round of applause. I really appreciate you sharing your journey with the semantic layer. And I think a lot of folks have these similar problems. The idea of building like a metrics factory system around that and putting a process in place, I think speaks to me a lot. I think it is very chaotic was the word that Fidel used to do a lot of this work without a system in place. So I think that's a really cool framing and a really cool way to think about it. We do have some time now for Q&A. So continue to drop questions in the chat, and we can go through and answer a few of these live as well. There we go. That's a lot better. Yeah, I think there is a big advantage to still creating your metrics this way. One is being able to reference them directly through our APIs in some of the ways that Fidel and Hans talked about. So I think that really helps with building out these data products. You do need to have, a specific business problem or use case that you want to solve. I think that's why I want to focus on that embedded analytics use case for that. And then the other way here that you can leverage the semantic definitions is actually through a product we have called exports. So if you want to take those metrics and use those to build out basically cubes of your data that join in different tables and create those metric definitions as tables in your warehouse, you can do that as well. And that's just a really dry way to create these roll-up and summary tables. So those are the two ways that we've seen folks leverage the metrics definitions and semantic model definitions if they don't have a BI tool that connects directly to the semantic layer. Cool. We'll pick a few more. Let me see if some of them are maybe more upvoted here. Let's see. Okay, another one from James about our integration ecosystem. So when will Sigma be online to leverage a semantic layer? That is a very good question, and please share this feedback with your Sigma rep as well. But we are currently in a private beta with Sigma to develop their semantic layer integration, and their plans are to open that up to more of a public beta in December and January, that sort of timeframe. So we do have a connection right now. It's a private beta, so if you want to reach out to your Sigma rep and ask to get access to that, that would be the best way forward here. Okay, let me see. I'll share this one as well. So can metrics from multiple semantic models be correlated in a parent model? I.e., we have a sales semantic model and a cost semantic model. They both share the same time dimension. Can we have side-by-side metrics in the parent model for revenue and cost? Yeah, so this is an interesting one. This is like going deep on data modeling and how to actually set up your semantic models. So if I understand this correctly, we want to take metrics from two different semantic models and basically relate them to each other, since they have a common time dimension and share a lot of common dimensionality in general. I think Lucas spoke a little bit about this in the chat. We don't have a concept of like a parent model, but you can combine metrics from multiple semantic models, and then the intersection of the dimensions that are available for the two metrics will be available for that composite metric. We call this a derived metric. So you can take your revenue and your cost data, even if they are from different fact tables, combine those to make your profit metric, or just craft a query that shows revenue and cost side by side at whatever dimensionality is available. And we have an understanding in the semantic layer of what dimensions are valid for both these revenue and cost metrics. So you're quite flexible in the types of queries you can create, and they don't actually need to be within a single semantic model. But if there are other use cases that go beyond that for this like concept of a parent model, very, very curious to hear about that. And as Fidel mentioned, we're available in the community Slack to hear feedback, and I think there will be a survey after as well. So would love to chat about that a bit more. Okay, let me see. Oh, David, I think you just responded to show them side by side in Tableau. Yeah, you will be able to see both of those metrics side by side in Tableau or in any of our other downstream integrations. Okay, I think we have time for a few more. Okay, what is the ETA for the Power BI integration? This is one of my favorite questions to answer. We are currently working on the Power BI integration right now. Our goal is to try and release a private beta of this integration by January. So that is sort of what we are striving towards. And we're really excited about this integration. We've heard from so many folks that Power BI is going to be a big way they want to consume from their metrics. So one of our top priorities right now is this integration. And Lucas, who has been in the chat, is actually working on that right now. So he's a really good person to chat about that with. Okay, I think those are all the unanswered questions. If you have more, please drop them in the chat. Oh, one more. How does let me promote this. How does EDW data modeling integrate with the semantic layer? I'm guessing this is enterprise data warehouse modeling. Brad, is that correct? You can maybe just write it in the chat.
Yeah, that's probably correct.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is like Kimball, right? Like, yeah. I see. Sweet. Oh, I'm getting a bit of an echo. Okay. I'm going to assume. Oh, Hans, you're on mute. Thank you. So yeah, I think they're very related. Fidel chatted a bit about how you want to consider the dimensionality that you're going to get from your different metrics. And I think if you have a star schema that's like fact and dimension tables that kind of conforms to that Kimball model, it's going to slot really well into how the semantic layer works, how we construct the different join paths, how we handle things like SCD type 2 dimensions. So I think that is going to give you the advantage of making your queries very efficient and providing you the maximum amount of flexibility with the types of queries you can actually answer if you do have like a star schema set up. That being said, you don't need it. If you do more of, I think what DBT users have done a lot is that one big table that makes the join more efficient because we're pre-joining it and we have all of the dimensions and facts available in one place. You can create a semantic model off of that as well and still get the advantage of codifying that metric definition and calculation upstream within DBT, and then all the benefits of exposing that through our APIs, similar to what Hans and Fidel were talking about. So you don't need to have a like perfect data warehouse model, and like dirty little secret, no one does have that built out, and it can work in either way. It's just about thinking of what is the dimensionality I want to expose to my end users? What types of questions do I want to answer? And that's where that data modeling practice comes in. Oh, cool. If you guys are using Kimball, you should be good to go. Okay, one more from David. Power BI has very advanced DAX formula capabilities. When do you decide to model in DBT or Power BI? This is a great question. So the way I'm currently thinking about this, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, is if you're an analyst in Power BI, you have a job to do, right? Which is to deliver analytics to your stakeholders. And you're going to reach for the tool that lets you do that job in the quickest way because you have this, huge backlog of things that you need to do. And so if you can service that request that you got, and just create a quick DAX formula, put out a report in Power BI, answer that question and move on with your life, you're probably going to do that. And that's what a lot of people do, right? And this is sort of this like service desk model for a data team. And I think there's a place for that, but it does tend to break down as you scale because you've created this singular, DAX formula that maybe is not shareable across your organization. There's no way to govern that piece of the calculation. And that's why a lot of people say, hey, this could be, you know, good for a one-off ask, but if I actually want to get a more scalable solution in place, I need to move that formula I've created upstream into DBT. And this is what we've seen a lot of people do, is because we want a way to scale that, we don't want like random, you know, DAX calculations everywhere. It's fine to do for some things, but if we actually think this is becoming like a load-bearing part of our business and like a piece of business logic we really want to codify, then I think you need to think a bit more scalably, move that upstream into DBT. And this could be in the modeling layer, it could be a metric that you defined, but it's just a way to capture that logic and then govern it within your DAG and put in place all of the DBT best practices that we have, like testing, CI/CD, things like that. So that I think is the tension. And I think there always is going to be a place for more of that like ad hoc, let me just do this in DAX. It's more about, I want this now to be scalable. That's when I need to start thinking about, let's move this into DBT.
Yeah. A rule of thumb that I follow for things like this is if I think that the metric is going to be so valuable that it can be used again, I won't do it on the reporting layer, right? Because the BI, to me, BI and that reporting layer, it's landed. Like that's the final destination. It's a little bit hard to bring it back upstream. So yeah, if it's going to be used in a different tool or a different analysis, then I'll do it in the DBT layer.
Yeah, agree with that. I think there's some cool things our partners are doing as well. We spoke a little bit about Sigma. They also have an concept of a metric within their tool that they're building out. And their vision for that is you may have that like one-off calculation, and then they want to create a like promote to the DBT semantic layer flow. So you could define that metric there, and then there's a sync with your DBT models once you're saying, hey, this thing actually needs to be codified and is becoming more important. Let's get that into our project, which I think is cool as well. Okay, looking through the chat. I think that is all the questions that we have here. So thank you everyone for the engagement. A few housekeeping items before we end. One is just want to call out, if you are interested in trying out the semantic layer and putting in place some of the things we talked about today, we're investing a lot in our like Copilot and code gen experiences. So we've released a way to just generate semantic models from DBT models and create metrics as well. That's what we're calling DBT Copilot. That's in beta. If you want to go try that out, I think it's a really good way to kickstart the development. And I see, Brad, one more question from you, so we can address that too. I want to make sure we get to everyone's because we have enough time. I'd like to integrate ER Studio Data Architect / data modeling tool with DBT. Can I talk to someone about how to do that? Yes, you can. I think the best thing there is the next point on this slide, which is if you click the like DBT Cloud, get a demo, that'll connect you with our sales team, give access to some of our technical experts, and they are the ones who are going to have all the answers of how can I use the ER Studio data modeling tool with DBT. So I think that's probably the best avenue there. The next thing I just want to call out is we do have some docs here. So if you want to read a bit more about the semantic layer, there's some resources for folks to learn more. And then if you want to give feedback on today's session, we're going to be sending out a short survey to folks just to get some feedback and understand how you guys enjoy the talk. So please fill that out. It's super helpful for us. Oh, I see a few more questions coming in. Is there semantic layer metadata? Can we describe and tag metrics? Yes, there is metadata on all of your semantic objects. It'll be fed through the metadata API, so you can see tagging, you can see lineage. We actually have a lot of metadata that we surface in there. And we are actually adding support for tagging metrics. That's something that's coming out very soon, so you'll be able to do that. But you can assign them groups right now, as well as like descriptions lineage, as you mentioned. So there's a lot of metadata that's available as well. It's treated very similar to other DBT resources like models. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And yeah, hope to see you around a DBT meetup in the community, and hope to interact with some of you folks soon. And thank you so much to Hans and Fidel for joining as well. Bye.